Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? Whenever a coach is fired, the most obvious next question is, okay, well, who are you going to hire? And that's it's an unavoidable question, but also one that we're not going to have an answer to until after the season, right? Because as long as the NFL season is going on, you're not going to be able to interview coaches that are still coaching. So you're going to wait for that Black Monday, the Monday after Week 18 in the NFL, and all of the rest of the coaches that are going to be fired or fired. And then you see what the pool of candidates may look like, and then you're able to start interviewing potential candidates as well. But I think the conversation about who the Saints might hire has to start with what other coaches get fired. Here's what I mean. Every year, there are going to be sort of hot candidates in the coaching pool. Like none bigger this year than Ben Johnson. So Ben Johnson is the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. He's from that whole Shanahan-McVay tree, and with all the success you've seen that they've had in Detroit, naturally, Johnson is going to be a very hot name. He was a guy that was offered head coaching jobs last offseason, decided to stay in Detroit for another year. But that only happens for so long before ultimately you accept one of these head coaching jobs. And that's probably going to happen after this year for Ben Johnson. But the other good thing when you're Ben Johnson and you're the guy everybody wants is you have options. You don't have to take a job just because it's offered. You have options. So when you look at the New Orleans Saints right now, yes, the Saints are looking to hire a head coach. But when that Black Monday comes in the NFL, the real question is how many other jobs are going to be available? This is obviously nothing official, but this is from bookies.com. So take it for what it's worth, but this is just an odds maker that put out odds for the next fired head coaches in the NFL. At the top of the list is Brian Daboll. So you're talking about the New York Giants. Doug Peterson in Jacksonville. Mike McCarthy in Dallas. Kevin Stefanski with the Browns. Matt Eberflus with the Bears. Zach Taylor with the Bengals. Nick Sirianni in Philly. And then Mike McDaniel with the Dolphins. It's not to say all of those coaches are going to be fired, but let's just draw a line at Kevin Stefanski. Daboll, Peterson, McCarthy, Stefanski. Let's say it's those four, okay? You know what? Even throw in Eberflus with the Bears. It's one of the reasons, by the way, and this isn't revisionist history. I mean, I told you when Jaden Daniels went 2 overall, my feeling was Washington was a better spot than Chicago. Because rookie quarterback, year 1 with Matt Eberflus, he may be fired. Boom. First 2 years in the league, rookie quarterback has two different coaches, and it looks like that may actually happen in Chicago. Whereas in Washington, new ownership, new head coach in Dan Quinn. They're going to be patient. He's a defensive-minded coach. So you're going to have a good defense, not going to ask the quarterback to do everything. Anyway, it's playing out that way. But let's just say Eberflus. So let's say those 5. Giants, Jags, Cowboys, Browns, Bears. Let's say those 5 fire their coaches. And then the Saints are in that pool. Where would you rank the Saints among attractive jobs? Among those? I mean, the Giants, that's New York. It's a pressure cooker. But it's still New York City. It's an historic franchise. Now, your quarterback situation very much up in the air. Jacksonville, while that's not a necessarily appealing market, you have Trevor Lawrence. You have a franchise quarterback in Jacksonville. Dallas, same thing. Incredible expectations and an owner that's meddling, but it's Dallas. It's the most popular professional franchise in sports, and you have a franchise quarterback in Dak, who they've won a ton of games. They just haven't had the playoff success, and you just extended him. So he's not going anywhere. The Browns, you could have an argument. You gave Deshaun Watson the worst contract in NFL history. Quarter billion dollars guaranteed. That roster is nowhere near being ready to compete to win. And it's Cleveland. And then the Bears. Tough division with Minnesota, Detroit. I mean, Detroit's maybe the class of the NFL right now. Minnesota, even with a backup quarterback, and Sam Darnold is playing better. Maybe you have your future there. And J.J. McCarthy, we'll see. And then Green Bay with Jordan Love. So the Bears are probably fourth in their division right now, but you do have your franchise in Caleb Williams. All that to say, the Saints are nowhere near the most desirable job. So listen, it's still an NFL head coaching job. And so it will be desired because there's only 32 of them. I'll remind you, Sean Payton took the Saints job when he didn't even know if the Saints were going back to New Orleans. Not being flippant about that, but half the city was underwater. We all remember what happened. I mean, they literally didn't know if they were going back to the city when he took that job. He's been on the record saying, like, he was pissed that he didn't get the Green Bay job. They hired Mike McCarthy instead. He thought he was getting the Green Bay job. So when you look at the Saints, you got a bad contract with a veteran quarterback that ain't going to win. You get the worst salary cap situation in the NFL. You've got an old roster. Like, you're not set up at all to win in New Orleans. Whoever takes this job is going to have to do so with the idea that they're going to get some patience from ownership and from the front office. I would compare it very similarly to what Zach Taylor inherited in Cincinnati. They were atrocious. His first year, they won 2 games. Then they drafted Joe Burrow and they won 4 games. And the next year, boom, they were in the Super Bowl. I'm not saying that's going to happen. But I do think the Saints, provided this season finishes the way I think we all think it's going to finish, you go draft your franchise quarterback. You're going to have a top 5 pick. You'll be in line to draft the franchise quarterback, which you have to do. And maybe that player sits for a year behind Derek Carr, because Derek Carr is not going anywhere next year. He's $50 million against the cap. His dead number is $51 million. So he ain't going nowhere. I think I actually reversed that. He's 51 against the cap. Dead number is 50. So he ain't going anywhere. You are financially bound to Derek Carr next year. Maybe he's the most expensive backup in the NFL, or maybe he's your starter and it allows your rookie to come in and sit behind him. But you have got to go draft a quarterback with your top 5 pick this year that we're all projecting you're going to have. So, who are the potential candidates? Our guy Ross Jackson, I'll lean on him. Ross Jackson over at LouisianaSports.net. Ross has his piece up if you want to go read it. He lists his 5 candidates and then some others that you should consider. It's all there at the website. He gives a full explanation of all of it. But the first one he mentions, as we said, Ben Johnson first, Brian Flores, the Vikings DC second, Liam Cohen, Tampa Bay Bucks OC, Bobby Slowick, OC with the Texans, also from that Shanahan-McVay tree, and then Aaron Glenn, he mentions, another defensive guy, the Lions DC, of course, who's got a lot of experience in New Orleans as well, went with Dan Campbell to Detroit, where he's been the defensive coordinator, been quite successful. But my intention is, generally speaking, if you had a defensive-minded coach and that failed, you do the opposite. You had a defensive-minded sort of players coach, substitute teacher retread. I want the opposite. I want a young, innovative, offensive-minded first-time head coach. Go try to find Shanahan. Go try to find McVay. Go try to find the next one in that. Go try to find your Kevin O'Connell. Go try to. Maybe you miss. But there's a path that's working, a pattern that's working in the NFL. So go find your version of that. The same website we just alluded to there, bookies.com. When you look at what the odds are for the next New Orleans Saints head coach, and again, there's a lot of different sites that you could look at. I'm just looking at this one just to kind of give you some semblance of a perspective of what the perception is, some of the names being discussed. The best odds is actually Joe Brady, the Bills OC. Young, offensive-minded. Adam Stenavich, the Packers OC. The actual list, Drew Brees is the third best odds. Then Mike McCarthy, Bobby Slowick, Mike Vrabel, Brian Flores, Doug Peterson, Ben Johnson way down the list at plus 1,400, and that's because obviously he's going to have better options. Kevin Stefanski, Nick Saban, and then Bill Belichick down at the bottom as well. Just to have a flyer on those guys. Chances are, because you're not going to be a desirable head coaching job, you're going to get a young offensive-minded guy who isn't at the top of everybody's list, or you're going to get a retread that's ready for another chance. If you just went down that road with Dennis Allen, I don't think you want to walk that path again.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.